Albert Einstein, a brilliant, brilliant physicist. When he came up with the theory of relativity, especially when he talked about photons, that light could be a particle, that was just so absurd that all of the physicists said, you are an idiot, Einstein. You don't know what you're talking about. How can you say that something that has no mass is a particle? Are you nuts? And he was rejected by all of the current scientific peers. And then it turns out that he was right.
Hello and welcome back to the Year of Great podcast with your host, Jeannie Cammond. Today, I have Dr. Karen Hurd on the podcast to discuss HRT. I get a lot of these questions. More and more of my clients are coming to me on HRT than ever, or I should say more people are coming to me who are on HRT. And really what Karen brings to light is how a lot of people are kind of sliding sideways into menopause and having not really taken care of themselves and thinking that HRT is going to be the silver bullet. And she really breaks down the science so that we can understand as women that whether it's our innate hormone or a synthetic bioidentical hormone, because bioidentical hormones are synthetic, they're not harvesting it from females, they're making it in a lab. And how, whether it's our innate hormones or hormones that we are taking, that it can mutate cells and lead to cancer. So it is just a risk. Will that happen for everybody who has female hormones? No. Will it happen to everybody who is taking hormones? Probably not. It's just, as Karen calls it, a roll of the dice. I hope you enjoy our conversation. I'm sure you're going to have questions, and I'll see you on the other side. You have a nice background. Is this your office or home?
This is my home.
Oh,
I'm in the sunroom of my home. It's a beautiful Wisconsin day.
It looks absolutely gorgeous. Well, we have our little quickie HRT podcast because I get a lot of questions from the community, the Beanie community. Now that the scientific community is revisiting the 2002 Women's Health Initiative information, and they're putting out a lot more information now that broke it down from the women who ended up getting cancer from HRT back then, and also the type, which you've talked about before, being like the horse urine and, the progestin versus progesterone. And now they're saying that because it's bioidentical, that it doesn't have the same risk factors so I'm getting a lot of people reaching out saying, what is Karen's scientific new information that they're saying it helps with, beyond hot flashes. Now they're saying bone health, heart health, even prevention potentially of cancer. Where do you want to begin with it?
Okay. It doesn't matter if it is synthetic from horse urine that we're making the hormone, or whether it is a bioidentical hormone. All of these trigger a receptor site on cells, which stimulate them to do something. When you trigger a receptor site, some chemical reaction is going to happen. What happens is a whole cascade of reactions that we call going downstream, and they go through the cell wall, because when you're triggering a cell, then you're going to include all the organelles of the cell, and they're going to go through a reaction to do what? To cause that cell to grow. That's usually what happens. That cell will proliferate so that there will be more of those cells. Unfortunately, these hormones are very small molecules. They're also called nuclear receptors. That's the scientific term for something that is this small and has the capacity not only to trigger a reaction, but also to go through, diffuse is what it's called, diffuse through the membrane of the cell and diffuse through the nuclear envelope. These are barriers. The cell membrane is, the plasma membrane is the technical term for it, but it's the cell wall. It's keeping things out that could harm it. But in this case, the hormone's triggering a reaction, but the hormone is diffusing through the cellular wall, and it crosses into the internal space of that cell. It's called the cytoplasm. And once it enters the cytoplasm, that hormone will bind with a transcription factor. It's another very small molecule. And these hormones are very tiny, very, very tiny. And then when it combines with the transcription factor, they will immediately migrate to the nuclear envelope. Inside of each of our cells, with the exception of red blood cells and brain cells, we have a complete copy of our DNA, an entire copy of our genome is in every single cell of our body. That's why we can use such technology with just a little bit of saliva, just a little bit of any part of your body, a little bit of your skin, because each one of they're made of cells. And inside that cell, inside the nuclear envelope, is your complete DNA. And we can identify anybody in the world because everybody's DNA is a little different, except for identical twins. That's identical twins have exactly the same DNA. This nuclear envelope is there as a second protective wall to keep out any marauding dangers. Because if you allow something to cross the nuclear envelope and enter into that space, then you can damage the DNA. And this is exactly what these hormones do. They are so tiny that they diffuse. They're what are called nuclear pores on the nuclear envelope. And you have to be you got to have a very special key to be able to get into the nuclear envelope. But because this transcription factor that attached to the hormone molecule is so very, very tiny, it can diffuse or pass through the wall unobstructed. It doesn't have to go through a nuclear pore. Think of it as instead of knocking on the door and walking in through a doorway, you just walk through walls. You're just so tiny, you can just pass through the wall. That's what's happening. And once this compound, this hormone with the transcription factor is inside the nuclear envelope, it will immediately attach to your DNA somewhere. It is random. It is not a particular place that you're going to, that it's attracted to this part of the DNA or that part of the DNA. It'll just randomly attach. And when it attaches, it will swap out DNA. And see, the DNA, there's a very particular pattern of nucleotides, or what they're called. They're very specific building blocks to our DNA, and they have to be in a very particular order. They can't be switched out, because if you switch them out, then they can't do their job. They will it is the DNA is the computer brain of a cell telling the cell this is what you have to do. So if you start to mess with the computer brain and you throw a screwdriver in there, then your computer's not going to work right. Many parts of the DNA, we are not sure what they're for, but we recognize that it doesn't change the function of the cell. We call them inactive. It's just our lack of knowledge at this point in time. We don't know what they're for. Who knows what it does, but we haven't observed a reaction. But if it hits a part of the DNA that is like the p53 gene, then this will tell the cell you need to keep making more of yourself, because there's something called a stop codon. It's a 3 nucleotide sequence that says, cell, you've reproduced, don't reproduce again, stop. And when you disrupt like the p53 gene, then what occurs is that stop mechanism doesn't work anymore. You've disabled it. And in almost 50% of our cancers, our hormonally receptive cancers, the p53 gene is the gene that has been mutated. How was it mutated? By these hormones crossing the nuclear envelope and randomly just attached to that place. And you'll say, it's what is the chances, Karen? One in, hundreds of thousands, millions, that it would attach to that gene or another place, because then we have non-receptive. I mean, we have all kinds of different cancers that we label. But it's not just one time, because when you're taking a hormone on a daily basis, or we're making hormones on a daily basis, or if you're taking them exogenously from the outside, you're taking a pill or you've got a patch or whatever it is, you are constantly pumping in this hormone. So it's not just a one molecule exposure at one time in your life. It is a constant barrage. And when I say barrage, that is exactly the word to describe it. You're just flooding the nuclear envelope with all kinds of these transcripted with the hormonal molecule attached, and then they're hitting all over the DNA. I mean, it's just like fireworks, all going off, boom, 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 everywhere on the DNA. So is it probable that you could hit the P53 gene or another one? Absolutely. And so then that cell will make more of themselves, because if you tell the cell to stop reproducing, it will just make another cell and another cell and another cell. And if it's mutated, then it may not do the function of what it was. It's just a blob of tissue that's really not sure of its function, because its computer brain has been mutated. It's been messed up. The software is not functioning correctly. So you've got a blob of tissue, and this blob of tissue is just a few cells at the beginning. But then these cells that are reproduced, they are all carrying the same DNA damage from the mama cell. See, this is a real problem, because when you damage the DNA, this is heritable. It's not like you just, well, you ruined that cell. Too bad. That cell will die off and will be gone forever, and then we're done with it. No, it's producing daughter cell after daughter cell after daughter cell that has the very same DNA damage without the stop codon to produce even more of themselves. So then these cells are making more and more of themselves until they grow into a 1 centimeter mass, or a 2 centimeter mass, or a 10 centimeter mass. And we call that a tumor. Sometimes they're benign, sometimes they're malignant. Malignant means that they have spread to other parts of the body. It's called metastasized, so that they can travel through the lymphatic system, through the bloodstream. Just a little small piece of it breaks off, and because you can have breast cancer in some other place in your body. Or people that have, I got clients who do too. They had kidney cancer, but now they have kidney cancer in the lung. Well, it's because that cancer traveled from the kidney, wherever it is. Now, we're specifically talking about hormone replacement therapy today, so we're going to keep it to breast cancer and to uterine cancer, ovarian cancer, and so those are the reproductive organs for females.
So if our endogenous hormones, our innate hormones, can give us cancer, and people have been getting cancer long before hormone therapy, why is there such a big push to get everybody, women, for brain health, for bone health, for cognitive health? Like, why is there such a push to get everybody on HRT if it's this much of a risk? Like, this sounds like a pretty major risk. So some women will probably come out of this era perfectly fine, no cancer. I just talked to a woman recently who was on hormone therapy and ended up with breast cancer, but they're not even linking it to her hormone therapy. They're just saying, oh, get off your hormone therapy. So why is there such a shift? Because people went back and they looked at the research from 2002 and went, oh, it's only if you've been in menopause for 10 years that you're at risk of getting all of these cancers and having the blood clots and, the issues from HRT. It's not if you're 5 years out from menopause and you start getting on HRT, it's actually perfectly safe. Like that's the rhetoric you hear out in the scientific world around, and the medical world around taking these hormones. So they're making it seem like it's a low risk intervention for a lot of women who, maybe haven't taken the best care of themselves, and heading into menopause, they're having a total garage sale, sweating all over the place, angry, dry vaginas, and this is the cure all. Like, you can see the appeal.
Yes. Where there is a demand, supply will come.
Follow. Yes.
And that's exactly what happens. If you have women that I have all these symptoms and I cannot stand it anymore, and they don't realize that they could change the way they eat and their lifestyle, and then that would all go away. And sometimes they will recognize it, but they don't want to give up that lifestyle. You and I run against this all the time in our practice. They know the right answers, but they choose to go in this direction. And that is everyone's right.
Correct.
This is their body. That's fine. That's what they want to do with it. We present them with the knowledge. What they do with it is up to them. So, one, you have demand. And so therefore You have a supply to meet the demand. Two, all of the, oh, but it helps the bone health, it helps the brain health, it helps, all these things. If you had been eating right your entire life, or at least the last several years before you went through menopause, you wouldn't have any problems with bone health, brain health, or any other of the problems that come along with menopause. We're all going to age. How old are you, Unique? You look like you're like in your late 30s, and I know you're not. How old are you?
I'll be 50 in February.
Yes, you'll be 50 in February. Okay, and I am older than you. I'll be 68 next month. So I am
Amazing.
way past menopause. I don't wear makeup. I don't color my hair. There's nothing wrong with wearing makeup or coloring your hair. I want you to understand I'm not critical of that. I just don't have time for that. I mean, I have so many things to do. I just don't have time. It's just like you got to accept me the way I am.
But you know
So
what?
here I am.
I do highlights in my hair, but I don't have any gray. Like yet.
Yes, and you're in your 50s.
Yeah.
And you're in your 50s.
Yeah.
And so now I obviously have some gray. I mean,
Well, you're
but
60. Would you say 68? Did you say 68?
I'm 68.
Yeah.
I'm 68.
Yeah. I would
In 2
imagine
years,
at 68, I will have
no.
gray hair. Yeah.
Yes, because we will not stop the process of aging. I mean, we're not going to, get new organs implanted in us so that we could supposedly live forever. No, that's not going to happen because we have chromatin in every single there in our DNA. At the end of the chromosome, there is a cap. And every year that ages, that cap gets narrower and narrower, smaller and smaller until there's no end cap. And when that end cap is gone, that cell will not be able to reproduce because the chromatin, that's the chromosome material will just fall apart. And so that determines, and we can really only live to 120 years. That we medically know that is the way God set it up. It's very clear that 120 years is max.
How many
So,
people have actually lived to 120 years? Not to get on a different tangent, but like,
I know that there are some. I mean, we'd have to look it up in the Guinness Book of World
yeah.
Records. Sometimes they say they lived to 126, but it's generally 120. And then how do you know when you go back that far? Like my grandfather, we're really not sure. Was he born in 1903 or was he born in 1901? Because they didn't issue birth certificates at that time
Yeah.
because he immigrated from Poland. And so he didn't know when he was born. So you guess, but we could look and see maybe there are some solid records, but there are some. But we all go through the aging process, and our lifestyles can make us age faster. What we eat make us age faster. If we smoke, if we drink, all those type of things. If you're exposed to a lot of chemicals, you're going to age faster. So anyway, so we have the supply and demand. Then we're entering menopause in a non-healthy state. So you already were going to have osteoporosis. Does the lack of estrogen cause osteoporosis? Absolutely not. It's drinking caffeinated beverages throughout your lifetime. And also anything that's a diuretic, and that includes all the herbal teas. If you're going to do that, you're going to lose calcium. So don't be surprised. I mean, then after a certain point, you've lost enough calcium that we say you have osteopenia, which is the precursor. It's like you've lost enough now. You're into the beginning stages of osteoporosis. So you say, but if I take the hormone, it makes it better. I always want to see those studies because when you read the studies in the detail, what did they go through? Did the person also change their diet at the same time? Were they taking supplements? Did they change their lifestyle? There are so many hidden variables that we don't even measure them. And so then we just say, well, we think there's a tendency here. And we say there's an association. That doesn't mean that it's proven, it's an association. So we have to be careful the way we look at the different studies.
Yeah.
So this is and if you read on any hormonal replacement therapy drug that you take from the outside exogenously, every single one of them will have a black box warning. A black box warning in a drug prescription data means this has been shown to occur on a frequent enough basis that you need to be paying attention to it. We've warned you before you decided to take this drug. Not all drugs have a black box warning, but HRT does. And what is in that black box warning? I mean, you can look up any of them.
Well, they're asking like that's the big push is to
cancer.
Yeah, and that's the big push right now, is to have that black box warning removed based on the latest findings and scientific kind of new understanding of the 2002 Women's Health Initiative study, is that they're saying like, oh, you should remove that. You shouldn't scare women off of taking their HRT.
Yeah. And this is something else that I want to tell you. You know, I've got an advanced degree in biochemistry. I have a master's degree in biochemistry. And before I got that degree, you have to do a tremendous amount of math to be able to even qualify for the program. So I had to have many semesters, 4 semesters of calculus. I had to have all kinds of trig and physics and chemistry before I even get into the biochemistry, program. But I will never forget my statistics class. And I studied this huge tome as an extra. It was a huge book on statistics. It was called the China Study. And for an extra credit project. And I looked at all kinds of statistics and how we calculate things. And at the end of the class, and I wrote my paper about the China study too, because that was supposed to be, this is the way it is.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the class, the professor said, so what is the most important thing that you have learned in class? And I didn't know what he was asking. He was asking the class as a whole. It was an in-person class at a brick and mortar school. I didn't raise my hand because I didn't know what he was fishing for. And he said that you can make statistics read however you want them to read. You can manipulate the data by emphasizing this, de-emphasizing that, or saying that maybe the bell curve, we need to extend the tails on the bell curve a little bit more outside of the 2 standard deviations because we have an outlier at 4 standard deviation. I mean, the amount of manipulation that can be done is incredible. And some of it will be not even purposeful. It's just, you're not, that it can be taken in so many different ways that you don't even recognize that you're going down a certain street. And I will tell you, Unique, I wish that we could say every single person in this world or in the scientific research is totally impartial. They are not. They all are partial to a particular hypothesis that they are trying to prove or disprove. So they're going to look at the data with a slant. And in science, you should say it shouldn't be that way in science, but it is. Let me tell you a true story about a very famous man, Albert Einstein. Everybody knows about Albert Einstein, a brilliant, brilliant physicist. When he came up with the theory of relativity, especially when he talked about photons, that light could be a particle. That was just so absurd that Max Planck, and I'm saying names, and people that are involved in the physics world, they'll immediately know who Max Planck was. He was leading physicist. All of the physicists said, you are an idiot, Einstein. You don't know what you're talking about. How can you say that something that has no mass is a particle? Are you nuts? And he says, but it's carrying energy. It is a packet of energy, and I'm going to call it a photon. And this is all involved in the theory of relativity. And they all, you know what they told him? He said, you were pig feeding in a trough. That's how stupid you are.
Oh, no.
And he was rejected by all of the current scientific peers.
Hmm.
And then it turns out that he was right. We know that he was right about that. But let's fast forward a few decades after Einstein is the most relevant and famous physicist in the world. And then there was a man named Warren Heisenberg that came along. And he said, Albert, I don't think that we can know where an atom is at any position, at any time, and what the momentum is. I think that I'm going to call it the theory of uncertainty. We can't know that. Einstein ridiculed him up, down, threw him out of the scientific community, said, you are the stupidest thing that ever walked the earth. Very similar to what he went through just a few years earlier, being called a pig in a trough. And he told Heisenberg, you are laying a big fat optum egg, which is absolutely false, you fool. And so Heisenberg's theory was batted out. This was in about 1915, 1918. Well, guess what? Since that, Heisenberg's theory, we have found actually has validity and has become a stable foundational part of quantum theory now. Because we can't know the exact position and momentum of a particular electron circulating around an atom, or as Einstein said, we absolutely can. And it has changed quantum theory completely. It's still happening today. These are brilliant men. Heisenberg was brilliant. Einstein was brilliant. But science is not settled. And they're going back and they're looking at old data from that women's study. So how is it that they're coming up with something different when we had experts working on it at the beginning? Is it true? Is it not true? Don't know. I'm not going to say, yay, nay, or anything. It's just an interesting hypothesis because there should always be rigorous scientific debate. I love it that Heisenberg and Einstein fought each other because they provided rigorous scientific debate. Let me show you why I don't think that you can determine a position and momentum of a particular electron at a space and at a certain point in time. So what we do is that it's like we want to have it settled. We want to know that this is it. It's black and white. There's no gray. But when we say science is settled, then that's the time you need to get out of the scientific community because science is never settled. And so you say, Taryn, so what should I do? This is all a whole bunch of theoretical, scientific gobbledygook you're talking about. But I'm talking about, should I take HRT or not? Then look at the consequences. Look at the consequences and just say, how many friends do you know that were taking HRT that now have cancer? I've only been alive 68 years, and I have been practicing for over 30 years. And I will tell you, they are getting cancer from taking HRT. And so you can say, well, that's anecdotal. That's just a story. But how does science get started and how do we study these things? Through the stories that happen, and we think, we might look at this. And so even your own endogenous, your own innate hormones that you make, if you're eating a diet that is full of caffeine causes you to make estrogen out the kazoo. And it's even more powerful at making you estrogen than the sugar is. Sugar will do the same thing. And then people take these goat cola supplements, and then they take this yam, stuff, and they take wild yam, because all of this produces more of your own natural estrogen. Is just like, but we know what I'm telling you about nuclear receptors today, how it crosses the nuclear envelope. We know that is happening. We can see that. We know that that's happening. Now, we're never sure where it's going to land on the DNA. We just have to see. That's chance. That's random. But I see it as playing a Russian roulette game. Hopefully you won't be one of the ones. I'm just now working with a client. This doesn't have to do with HRT, but this is a perfect example. Rheumatoid arthritis on Enbrel. Enbrel is a drug that you use it's an immunosuppressant drug. It is known to cause non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, a very real possibility. Not everybody gets it. He was a client about 10 years ago, and I worked with him. Please change your diet. It's all the stuff that we do, and tell him and everything, but it was too difficult. He didn't want to do that. It was just easier to take the Enbrel because, it takes care of the pain. And then I want to eat this stuff. I like my sugar. I like my caffeine. I like all this butter, all the things that create this rheumatoid arthritis he had. He contacted me a week ago. He was in tears. I haven't talked to him in a decade. He says, Karen, I have non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. And he said, I quit the Enbrel the moment I found out. You told me that was a very real possibility. You warned me and I ignored you. Now he has non-Hodgkin and he's crying. He was a grown man crying on the phone. And I'm crying with him too.
Yeah.
And we do all that we can. But when you have cancer of the blood, that's what non-Hodgkin's lymphoma is. It's cancer of the blood.
Yeah.
It's just like, but we want to take away the black box warning. I am a scientist, but I'm a realist too, Unique. I live in a political world. That's part of my job nowadays. And I am telling you, you can sell a product that is more important than the health of the people that you're selling the product to. And so are the manufacturers? Who's doing these studies? Is someone on the board of a pharmaceutical company that they really just want you to buy this? Do you know the number one drug sold in this country was Premarin? This was about 10 years ago. I don't know where it is now. I have to look up what is the number one drug. But that's a big money making drug. And you want people to keep taking it. So, I bat my head up against this all the time. We don't want people to eat bad stuff. But you have the food manufacturers lobbying against you and saying, we want to sell these Coca-Cola and all these bad products to these people because they want it. And Unique, if that's a person's decision, then that's their decision. To go ahead, drink your Coke, drink your whatever that's your decision. But at least my job is at least to educate you so that you knew that you had a choice. And that if that's your choice, that's fine. I'll be here if you ever need me. And I'm not going to say I did not rub. I didn't say, I told you so. I didn't. They don't need that.
You didn't have to,
No,
though. You didn't have to.
I didn't have to. He already knew. Because he was the one who told me I stopped the inbreath. You had told me. And so, and all I say, we will do everything that we can possibly do to help you with your lymphoma.
It'll be interesting to see how many people from this era of kind of like HRT, the wave, are going to end up with breast cancer, and the bottom line is the doctors prescribing are not responsible. The medical system will happily take you for cancer care. The only person who's responsible is oneself at the end of the day, that sitting at that precipice of making that choice for themselves, of getting really honest that they're the one responsible for the choice that they're about to make, because nobody else is going to take responsibility for that choice. And the promoting it, like it's really promoted. It's not just something you talk to your doctor about. There are people, because we have platforms now where people are actively promoting lifestyles, and, I'm promoting omnivore, high fiber beans, right? And other people are out there promoting paleo, no beans, gundry, no beans, carnivore, no beans, vegans, beans. It's like you have this really interesting mixed bag out there, and people are kind of just like a badminton game being bopped around. And then you have scientists and researchers from different labs promoting hormones to help protect against brain health and dementia. And, you just have all of these big conversations out there. So you can see how the average woman, if she's like, I've got hot flashes and, I'm worried about bone health and I eat healthy enough, right? Because we have that mantra going as well of what's healthy enough, and don't be restrictive, right? And, you can get on this inert or mostly benign medication, and all of these things can go away and you can continue to live your best life. I mean, it's offering, it's almost like offering the fountain of youth. And you can see how, there isn't a client that walks through my door over the age of 45 these days who are not on HRT. Some of them are on patch estrogen only. Some of them are on because they're now saying if you take progesterone and estrogen together, it protects your uterus against uterine cancer. But when you look at the research, like before we got on the phone, I was diving into it. Even the research polls of like, if you've had a hysterectomy, you can do estrogen only, but there's benefits to progesterone. And if you take them together, you get, but we have estrogen and progesterone cancers innately that women get. So how is taking a medication that much different? And why are we allowed to walk around and say that this is safe?
Well, free speech is my first thought, is we're allowed to say whatever we want to say.
True. True. Very, very political of you, Karen.
Yeah, that's very political of me. I live in this realm. And by the way, do you know, it was my very degrees, it's this very job that drove me into politics because of all the lies that were told about COVID. And I knew that they were lies. It's like, I thought science is supposed to drive our world forward, but it is not. It's politics and money that drive our world. It is politics and money.
Also how we interpret data, right? Like how one interprets data and how people read studies and how people interpret the nuance is a huge part of how things are promoted. So you have two different people looking at a study, and and depending on how you're looking at it, you're probably going to walk away with a different idea of what happened and what went down, or what was left out and what was left in. And, I'm guessing that that's why science is so difficult and these papers are so difficult to decipher, is because depending on the lens that you're looking through, you're talking about different factors entirely, maybe the ones that promote your agenda or don't.
Yes. Yes. It makes it very difficult on the layperson.
Yeah.
I know where I am, you know where you are, because you've done the work, you've done the study, and you are also experiencing it with your clientele, and so you become an expert. I have become an expert. And so then, but there are other experts that, that do other things too. As I say, if you ask 10 farmers how to grow a good tomato, you'll get 10 different answers. And they're all farmers and they all grow tomatoes. And so it makes our life difficult. And so all I can do is encourage the layperson to find someone that has success rate with whatever the ailment is that they're coming to you for, unique or to me for. And I can say, yes, I have helped women with breast cancer. Yes, I've helped people with fibromyalgia, whatever it is. Or there's only so much. I don't have the answer to ALS. I know I can slow its progression, but I cannot reverse it and keep it from its final end. ALS is a nasty disease. Anyway, it has nothing to do with hormones, so it's a different thing. But I mean, there are some things that I cannot, that I will be honest with you. If someone comes to me, I'll say, this is my experience and what I can say and what I can't do. And so it's part of the human experience. It's part of our life. I mean, as we grow up, am I going to choose to do this with my friends or that with my friends? Am I going to go this way with my career or that way with my career? I mean, we're always making decisions.
But I feel like this is a really important one, because breast cancer, ovarian cancer, it's not a throwaway conversation. It can change the course of your life, those treatments. And depending on how your body reacts to them, I mean, they're basically almost killing the human body in pursuit of killing the cancer. And, so this isn't a light topic. This is, I feel like it's an important conversation.
It is an important conversation, and the science isn't settled in it, unique. I mean, it is the same thing as, we used to do bloodletting, which either we would, they have bowls. I don't know if you've seen the bowls. You rest your elbow in the bowl and they cut your arm, and they let so much, the bad blood had to drain out, or they put leeches. These are blood sucking, nasty little creatures, that suck your blood, and and that was supposed to be the way. Or they would drill a hole in your brain, to let out, some of just incredible stuff that actually killed people. I mean, it's just, but that was the science of the day. And so we're stuck in this place. All I can do is just encourage the people that are listening to this podcast, take seriously the threat of cancer with hormone replacement therapy. I want to tell you about a woman named Randy. She's an RN. I've been working with her for, I think it's 20 years now. She was diagnosed with breast cancer, hormonally caused breast cancer.
Her endogenous hormones, or like she was taking a prescription, or it was her hormones?
It was own endogenous hormones. But she was living the lifestyle of the sugar, the caffeine, even though she was an RN, and RN's supposed to know better about diet, but they're people too. And she was born with a congenital eye condition where she was not going to be able to take all the drugs that they were recommending, all the chemotherapy, all the stuff, because that would make her completely blind. Yeah. And so her doctor, who's here in Eau Claire, he's a good doctor, said, I will agree. And she had found me. And he says, I will agree. I will every month check your estrogen levels, because your estrogen is way too high, way too high. And she was in menopause, and so we have to bring that down. This is what's caused the cancer. And so she says, but I can't do it. So what do? We ate soluble fiber. And we have all her labs where they came down, down, down to where all of her levels were where they were supposed to be, at a postmenopausal level, really low. And so it's just, and she has remained cancer free. So it's just, it really does work. And so there's an example of someone that did not do all the drugs and we were able to fix it, but it was caused by estrogen. Yeah.
So if somebody, because I know somebody will listen to this and ask me, so if somebody is low in estrogen for whatever reason, the beans are not going to be a problem for them, right?
No, not at all, because the beans never leave your gut. The
Yeah,
beans are only going to carry out what's dumped into your gut.
exactly.
They're not going to pull out anything in the bloodstream. Your liver has to do that. And how does the liver know how much that we're going to discard of these hormones? It's because the pituitary gland is saying we need more, we need less.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, it's
we're just,
interesting.
yeah, we're not going to stop. We just keep from recycling and going back in, because then your body's saying, stop giving me so much estrogen. And we stop the recycling of estrogen going back in when we eat the beans. We don't allow it to recycle or as recycle as much. Quite frankly, you're still recycling some, because you cannot eat beans. We recycle our bile 21 to 72 times a day.
Hmm.
So are you going to eat beans 72 times a day?
Hmm.
And stay up all night long to, calculate how many 72 into 24 hours, and maybe you're one of the 21. It depends on a person's mortality. That's how fast things move
Yeah,
to the
the
gut.
motility. Yeah.
So yeah, the motility.
So the baseline for you, based on your understanding of the science and physiology, is that to take hormone replacement therapy is to take on a very serious risk of being one of the people that it mutates the cell and causes cancer. And
Yes.
that of this era, of this wave, that there are going to be women who come out of it without cancer. And there's going to be a lot of women potentially who come out of it with cancer. And that's just going to be the roll of the dice.
Yes, it's a roll of dice because of the random damage to the DNA. Because
Yeah.
it's just random.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very sobering, because I gotta say, Karen, like the uptick in the last few years of clients who come to me who are 46 and older, all on HRT, vaginal atrophy, dryness, hot flashes, night sweats, and it's all gone. They feel amazing. And it's like, it's kind of wild, to see. And even people with other conditions that are on it. And it feels so counterintuitive to me. Like, I'm 8 months
Well,
without a period, and I continue to just do my thing, being life. But it's kind of, I don't know, it's a sobering reality, I guess is what it is.
yeah, yeah. And the counterintuitiveness is exactly right. Think back, were we created to live on a drug? How long have we been living on? Did we do this 100 years ago? No, but our diets have changed. And you're going to come through menopause. You're already, you said 8 months without a period. You're going to come through fine. You're not going to have any of those symptoms because you've been eating well for so long beforehand. I
Yeah.
came through fine. I'm 68. I have no problems. Zero, zippo. Didn't have any of those problems. So am I one of the lucky ones? No, but I've been eating well since I was in my 30s.
Yeah.
That gives me, you get 30 years behind you, 35, 38 years behind you, of good eating. And then it's like, well, yeah. And then that is it is natural for us to stop making progesterone when we go through menopause. It is natural for us to have decreased amounts of estrogen, because if we do have increased amounts of estrogen after menopause, we are at high risk for cancer
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
because we were exposed through all those childbearing years.
Yeah.
We had a higher exposure. It's like, no, now we're past this point in our life. Now we don't need as much estrogen, but you're not making enough to keep from the dry vagina or all the rest of the menopausal symptoms. It's just like, who's making the estrogen for you? It goes back to, I think we already had this discussion somewhere, but that it's the adrenal glands that's going to make the estrogen for you. There's different kinds of estrogen. There's stronger estrogens and weaker estrogens. Is a weaker estrogen, but it's enough to keep you a woman. You're not going to grow hair on your face and become the bearded lady at the circus.
Yeah.
None of that's going to happen because you were eating well. But if you weren't eating well, then how are your adrenals possibly going to take up the role of producing these estrogens for you that you need? They're going to not be able to do it until you start eating well, and then they have a chance to recover. And will it happen in a week? No, it won't happen in a week. It'll be months.
Yeah.
And some people are impatient. They're very impatient. I mean,
Well, it's
just
also
mankind.
people love their caffeine. And as women, when we get to menopause and our adrenals are the ones that pick up the slack, if we're stressing our adrenals out with caffeine, how is it going to have time and space to create hormones for the rest of the female body? It's got to drop a task somewhere, and it's probably going to be, yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
eat right, take care of yourself, and vaginal atrophy and dryness can heal over time. And yeah, would you agree with that, Karen?
Oh, yes, absolutely. I work with all kinds of people in menopause with all these problems, and it all clears up. Get rid of your caffeine, get rid of your sugar, eat right, and then and rest. And then we do these crazy things like I have to go to the gym and exercise. I have to do my, so many mile run. I have to, I'm training for this, half marathon, blah, blah, blah. It's like, do you understand the stress that you put your body under? So you have limited resources. You're growing older. You're having limited resources, especially if you put such a stress on your adrenal system for so long. So now you're going to stress it even more
Yeah.
because you are making a conscious, voluntary decision. I'm going to go run. I'm going to go whatever it is, work out the gym, blah, blah. Then realize that you're taking the resources that you wanted for your menopause to come through menopause and not have a dry vagina and all those symptoms. You have just said, I think it's more important to lift weights. Well, then lift your weights and then live with your symptoms over here because you took away what resources you had and you diverted them to another cause. And that's a choice.
Yeah, it's a choice. And it's a tough one because I think there's going to be a lot of women choosing HRT over so they can work out and do everything that they want because it's stopping that natural decline into menopause where you do have less resources. And so it's interesting. It's an interesting gamble, I guess, one would be taking on by going, I don't want anything to change. I'm fighting change. I don't want to give anything up, so I'm going to take this medication to make it all go away. It's not embracing the transition. It's kind of fighting that transition. It's kind of refusing to transition into being the matriarch because that is the transition. If we were looking at women, I can't say 100 years ago because I feel like didn't people die really young because we didn't have toilets and stuff like that? Like there was didn't people die in like their 30s and
we didn't have antibiotics till the 1940s. And and antibiotics saved a lot of lives because pneumonia was the number one killer. You just get strep B, which is the pneumonia bacteria, and then they die.
Yeah.
And so we have antibiotics that can stop that now.
Yeah. So it's hard to relate because women are probably living longer than they ever have now. So do we have anything to compare this to other than how long ago did women start living longer and through menopause? I think, do we have a roadmap for this era?
I haven't read one. I haven't seen one.
Yeah.
I mean, because then you go back and you say, okay, well, we know how long our life, we have death records, so we know how long a person lived, but there's so many factors that we don't even take into account.
Yeah.
Where did she live? Did she live in rural Wisconsin where they had outhouses at that time instead of if she lived in a city where they had a flush toilet? I mean, there's so many things we don't know. And it's back to statistics. You have so many variables, unknown variables that you can just basically twist this any way you want to twist it.
Well, I would say as you're down the road from me, you've been my mentor and expander in this department of hey, I can make it through this transition in my life. And, it's possible to do it healthy and through diet interventions and, to not crash land like my mom and my grandma, because they were type 2 diabetics. And, it was like watching a slow motion accident happen. Well, thank you, Karen. I appreciate your time. We've gone over, and as always, I'm excited to put this out just for food for thought. Obviously what I like about the tone of this conversation is there's no right or wrong. It is, but there is take it seriously because this is your life and this is your health. And if our own hormones can give us cancer, why wouldn't a prescription hormone have that same opportunity? So.
Exactly. Yeah.
Thank you so much for being here and for lending your wisdom and for also showing us that natural menopause is totally possible. You're firing on all cylinders. Your brain is not declined. Your sense of humor is intact. and you're not sweating. So,
Yeah.
I hope you enjoyed our conversation. I know that what she brings to light is a very different conversation than we are hearing in the health space. And, women have been going through menopause for a lot longer than these hormone options have been around. For some women, they're coming to me to get off of their hormones and really dial in their diet and lifestyle so that they can live long, live well, and really hopefully sidestep the whole cancer conversation. I think the hard part is that it's a long game, that we can feel fine now and then have, cancer in 15 years from choices we make today. And it's really hard to live that far in the future. So my philosophy is really live now, take care of myself now, take each day as it comes, and see how we go. For now, diet and lifestyle interventions are perfectly great for me. And with Karen as my mentor and by my side, I feel like I got this. I'm going to be 12 months without a cycle in December. So if I hit December and I still don't have a period, I will be considered in menopause. Yeah. So anything is possible. Eat well, take care of yourself, sleep well. This is a practice of love and care and devotion for my human body. And I'm happy, and I feel good. So, all right. I'll see you next time. If you want to work with me, you can visit my website, you'regreat.com. I offer coaching calls, group coaching, private coaching packages, and everything in between. All right. Take care of your beautiful selves wherever you are in this amazing world.